It is time for one of those limited ingredient cooking challenge videos. We're going to be sticking with the format that we've kind of iterated to so far, which is buy the cheap-ish things. And so also, to keep things from getting too samey, I'm going to say that we can't buy the things that we had in the last two videos, or the last two-part video and the one before that. And I've tweaked the categories a tiny bit because there are other categories to explore. So I'm going to go out and buy a cheapish thing, not necessarily the cheapest, but a cheapish thing from each of these 8 categories. So fresh meat, but not chicken or pate, even though it's not fresh meat, because we had those in the previous 2 videos. The cheese category, I'm going to expand to dairy, but it can't be mozzarella or some sort of hard cheese like cheddar. Fresh fruit, but not apples or pomegranate. Fresh green vegetables, but not celery or spring onions. Fresh non-leafy vegetables, but not carrots or potatoes. A tinned or canned item, but not spaghetti hoops or rice pudding. A dry staple. This replaces bakery items because that was just going to be bread every time. That gets a bit boring. And something in a glass jar, but not jam or tartar sauce. On top of that, from the kitchen, we're going to have salt, pepper, water, and 1 tablespoonful of oil or fat, 1 herb, 1 spice, 1 sauce, and 1 foraged item. So that's the parameters, and it's important to note this is not about being realistic or anything like that. This is an exercise in which we create a slight difficulty and then try to find ways to overcome that difficulty and hopefully learn or discover something along the way. So let's go shopping. Alright, so back from shopping. Here's the haul. Tin of baked beans in tomato sauce, 28 pence. Now, I know this has been a regular on this series. However, it wasn't forbidden. We couldn't have rice pudding or hoops, so we got baked beans. That was the cheapest tin I could find. A 500-gram tub, half a kilo of fat-free natural yogurt, 35 pence. Very good value. A jar of Everyday Essentials pasta sauce, tomato and herb. That was 47 pence. A 5-pack of bananas for 78 pence. Now, trouble is with these bananas is a lot of them were really green, and the only ones that were actually looked ripe enough to eat were a little bit beaten up. So we might not have 5 actual usable bananas there, but we'll see. 240 grams of radishes, 29 pence, part of the Aldi Super 6. There were not 6 Super 6 things, there were only about 3 available, and that was one of them. So that's my non-leafy vegetable. Green beans, 220 grams of green beans, 69 pence. Again, this was a Super 6 item. 500 grams of spaghetti, 28 pence. Now, I would have preferred to get flour or something like that, because spaghetti does present some challenges. Obviously, there's a lot of energy there, but it does present some challenges in terms of what we can make with that. And then for the meat, £2.29 for 500 grams, half a kilo of beef mince, 25% fat. Now, 25% fat doesn't sound so great, but that fat will render out. We can use it for other things. Anyway, so there we go, beef mince. So that came to a total of £5.43. Not bad, I don't think, actually, not bad. I can see one very obvious meal here, because, you know, minced beef, pasta sauce, spaghetti. One very obvious meal there. However, we've got to try and make 3 meals out of this. So that's tomorrow's task. So, breakfast time, and just to recap the haul, this is what we've got to eat today. So there's no shortage of food here. What there is, though, is some challenge in terms of how we combine this. There are some very obvious things, like there's pasta sauce here, there's beef mince, and there's pasta. And we may do that for lunch, I don't know. But one of the challenges here is, okay, how do we make different or unexpected things? I should say, actually, also, since foraging is allowed on this one, on the way home from the shop, I stopped and grabbed some wild garlic, ramsons. So we have got some oniony flavour to go in here as well, although it's quite mild. I think I'm going to try to make breakfast. Now, breakfast doesn't always have to be breakfast flavour. We could make spaghetti bolognese for breakfast. But where I come from, breakfast is very often a kind of sweet, often sort of carb-loaded meal, just the way things are. And anyway, we're going to kind of go for something like that. So the question is, and I kind of already know the answer, can we make something out of spaghetti that isn't spaghetti? Can we, for example, grind it up and use it as flour to make bread or cakes or crackers or whatever? The answer is, I don't know, maybe, but I've tried that in the past. Actually, grinding this stuff up when it's dry is pretty near impossible. You can get it down to almost like couscous type of grain size, but getting it back down to a flour is actually really difficult. Also, when you do grind it down, I don't think the gluten works in the same way as it did the first time around for mixing. So I don't think you can make bread out of it. We've got 500 grams of pasta to play with. So I'm going to take about 100 grams. Actually, let's make it 125, because then it's a quarter of my pasta. So we're going to take 125 grams of this pasta and just cook it. Water is on a rolling boil. Spaghetti goes in. No salt. I didn't forget it. I'm deliberately not adding it. Right, now while that's doing its thing, let's go and see what's going on with those bananas. Bananas are often a bit hit and miss. So if you want to buy ripe bananas at the shop, you often end up with a bruised one. If you buy them green, they're not bananas yet. Normally what I do is just buy them and wait for them to ripen at home, but when you're shopping the night before for the things you're eating the day after, that's not always possible. Anyway, let's see what we got here. It's just a bit bruised. There's no reason why that's not edible. It's not going to be pretty. Yeah, it is just bruised. Nothing actually wrong with that. 2 bananas in the jug for my handheld blender. And some of this natural yogurt. A little taste. not bad actually. A little bit on the sour side. I'm tempted to throw another banana in there, but I'm concerned about what that might do to my digestion. Okay, we'll stick with 2 bananas. Pasta is cooked. I'm just going to drain that. Okay, now I have taken this spaghetti a little way beyond al dente. Only a little way. I'm just going to run that under cold water, both to chill it down and stop it sticking together. Now, at the moment, we've got cold, cooked spaghetti, noodles. I feel like I want something more like the texture of rice to go in here, but before we chop it all up or something, I think probably we should try breakfast pasta. Just like that. Dressed in that yogurt and banana sauce, I suppose you'd call it. It's very weird. It's not horrible, but it is very strange. Not terrible, terribly weird. But that sauce is a bit thin for that, and we've only got one thing to thicken it with, which is pasta. So here's how this is going to go from here. And Italians, if you haven't already clicked away in disgust or horror, this might be the moment. I reckon about that much spaghetti in there. And we'll bring back the handheld blender, and away we go. I'm not going to blend that down completely. I'm hoping for something a bit like semolina pudding. And here we go. So, okay. Well, that does look like more of a porridge, doesn't it? Don't imagine it's going to taste any different to what I just had, but maybe the combination is the charm. Oh, actually, do you know what? That's all right. I think freeing up some of that starch so that it combines with yogurt and the banana, it is a bit like it's ever so slightly sour because of that yogurt. It reminds me of tapioca pudding. That's actually not bad. I'm inclined to wonder what would happen if you did this the night before and that pasta would absorb even more of the moisture. I think this would probably thicken up overnight, maybe even set. It could use a bit of sugar or honey or golden syrup. I suppose I could have probably grilled a banana to sweeten it and caramelise it a bit. And we could have had that sliced on top, but there's already 2 bananas in here. Certainly that will get me through to lunch. And we do have about half of that cold pasta left over. That won't go to waste. I've got a plan for that. Now I think given that we have some spaghetti, we have some beef mince, we have some pasta sauce, I think it would be a missed opportunity if we didn't make some kind of fairly normal looking pasta dish. So I think I'm going to do spaghetti with meatballs. I am going to do some small things to make the sauce a little bit more interesting and the meatballs a bit more interesting. So normally with meatballs, in addition to the meat, I would normally have maybe some breadcrumbs in there, some onion and garlic powder, a bit of seasoning obviously, and sometimes I might put a carrot in there as well. Just really, it helps with the moisture of the meatballs. It helps with the kind of moisture and texture of the meatballs. I haven't got any carrots, but I have got radishes. So, radishes, in lieu of breadcrumbs, we'll have some of this pasta. Not a great deal because it's going to be served with pasta, but this will just help it to sort of bind a little bit. We'll have some of this minced beef, and I think probably only about half of that minced beef will go in there, just maybe slightly less than half. A little pinch of salt, and I haven't got onions, but I do have some of this beautiful wild garlic. Now this has got a really strong aroma, but not a very strong flavour, and I'm going to save these stalks. So stalks can come off there. Leafy bits, I'll just snip them in just to help them to get shredded up. I don't want them to wrap around the blades of this food processor, which can happen. We have got today an allowance of 1 spice, 1 herb, 1 sauce, and I think my herb is going to be thyme. Thyme's quite a powerful herb actually, so about half a teaspoonful of that in there. Okay, let's see what happens when we run that. Right, that's pretty finely ground now. That looks like a meatball mix. So these meatballs, if indeed they are meatballs, I'm just going to put them straight into the pan here. I'm using one of my biggest pans here because I'm going to cook something else with the other mince while I brown off these meatballs. I'll try and make them roughly the same size, kind of a large bite size. Now, I don't know what they'll be like with a bit of radish in them. I don't suppose it's going to be all that noticeable, but having a little bit of vegetable in there does help with the texture. All right, so got 13 meatballs out of that lot. That was not bad. These wild garlic stalks, I'm going to chop up into tiny little pieces. This will be used in lieu of onions when I cook the rest of the mince. And I might actually chop up some more of those as well, because there's not a lot there. So in this corner of the pan, I'm going to get these meatballs to brown. In this corner, I'm going to cook the mince for something else. And in fact, I still don't think I'm going to use all of this mince, because I'm only cooking for myself today. So I think probably about that much. And so we've got about a third of the mince left. I might just put that in a small bag in the freezer. So now we've got some fat rendering out of that meat, and there will be quite a lot of it because it was a 25% fat mince. We'll have the chopped onion stalks over this side, and we'll fry them along with the mince. And yeah, we'll have some more of the wild garlic stalks in with that mince. This is all washed, by the way. I did wash it straight after foraging it. So these are the flower stalks, all completely edible. Flowers are edible too. I don't think I'll put them in here though. The meatballs are showing a slight tendency to fall apart, but so I'm going to be gentle with them. I'm actually going to turn the pan because my cooker has a slight tilt on it. Not by design, but the fat will tend to pull down this end, and then I can skim it out. Right, so I'm going to rescue some of that fat from there using a turkey baster. Right, so I don't know if we'll actually even need the oil allowance that we had in the parameters, because we've got this beef dripping that's come out of the minced beef. Lots of it. I am going to try and do something with that though. In addition to the flavour that's coming out of the meat in this fat, it will have also picked up some of the oil-based aromas in the thyme and the garlic. And this minced beef here, I'm just going to take out and we'll reserve that in a little dish. So that's going to be part of dinner. Right, back over to the chopping board. Because while we have that pan hot, I think I would like to experiment with cooking radishes. Normally radishes are something I would eat raw in a salad, but a radish is basically a small turnip. So what I'm going to try here is just score them that way and then that way. So radishes kind of crosshatch scored, and these are just going to go into this pan cut side down. I think those meatballs can come out now. Move these around so they pick up some of that fat. Now they will change colour a little bit when they're cooked. They'll go a paler pink. I think we might just give back a little bit of this fat. That's kind of what I'm looking for. So radishes also, I'll just take out and reserve. And I think I'll probably use this pan for cooking the sauce to go with my pasta, because there's no point dirtying another pan. Water's boiling, and we will salt the water this time. I do want seasoned pasta for this. And 150 grams of spaghetti goes in there. While we wait for the pasta, I think some of these green beans, just trying to think what it's about a portion for a person. It's about a handful. I'm going to throw these beans into the pasta water as it's cooking towards the end, so they get kind of lightly cooked along with the pasta. So I'm going to cut them like this, so on the diagonal. So we've got fairly delicate little pieces of green bean. Right, that pasta's not going to take long. So back in this comically oversized big pan here, we're going to just put the sauce together with the meatballs. Now I am just using this pasta sauce. Obviously I can't take any of the credit for however good or bad this tastes. Let's actually have a look. It does look a little bit kind of starch thickened. What can we truly expect given the price? I'll have a taste anyway, see what it's maybe needs or is lacking. Actually, it's not bad. It's quite herby. It's not very tomatoey, but it is what it is. Actually, you can really taste the fennel seeds in there. So we've got the heat back on underneath here. The meatballs are going to go back in there. Okay, they're starting to sizzle. I think we'll go for about half of this sauce. Yeah, I think a smaller pan would have been more sensible, but when am I going to start being sensible? Right, that pasta is halfway, so the green beans are going to go in with it now. That pasta sauce is a bit ketchupy. Ketchupy, but not tremendously tomatoey. I have got my sauce allowance that I could throw in there. But I think what I'll do instead is I'm going to snip up some of this, some of the green parts. Actually, no, the whole lot. Why not? Of this garlic. So this wild garlic is doing a fair bit of the lifting today, and we'll treat those green leaves there a little bit like spinach. It'll cook down, yeah, kind of green vegetable. Anyway, just get that warmed through. Check one more time on the pasta. A little bit stiff. Not far though, maybe another minute. And I'm going to take a bit of a gamble here and put some of my plain yogurt into this pasta sauce to make it a bit more creamy, give it a little bit of acidity. I'm going to turn the heat right down because I don't really want to just curdle it. This cheap pasta sauce has got a really weird kind of funky aroma to it. Anyway, yeah, that's better. Right, heat's going to go off on that now. We'll check one more time on this pasta. Yeah, that's good. I will reserve a bit of starchy water just in case we need it. And let's get that drained. Okay, heat's all off now. And then we're just going to dress it all together. So just in the short time it's taken me to reset the camera, that pasta has absorbed some of the sauce. So a tiny bit of the starchy water that we reserved just brings back a little bit of sheen and gloss to that pasta. Bit more pasta, meatballs. But also then some of these griddled radishes. Right, so where should we start? I think one of these meatballs, there are more, that's really nice. Yeah, really tasty. Lovely balance of herbs. I do think the pasta has helped with the overall texture of the thing. A pure beef meatball can sometimes just be a bit tough. These have got a nice lightness to them. Pasta and sauce. I mean, all this is the sauce from that jar plus some yogurt. Not bad, not fantastic. It's really heavy on the fennel. It's got a peculiar acrid herbiness to it. And now these little griddled radishes. That works. There's even almost a kind of meatiness to the searing on there. And that's probably from the beef fat. They're good. Meatballs are good. Green beans. These only went in about 3 minutes before the end of the pasta was cooked. So they're just lovely and crisp. Fresh tasting. I do like green beans when they're just very lightly cooked like this. Yeah, I don't know about this sauce. So yeah, these meatballs have got a little bit of spring to them, which is really good. And would you know that there's radishes in there? No, the radishes just disappeared, but I'm sure it has contributed to the kind of lightness and the texture. So not a bad meal, but we still got to try and make dinner out of something. Right, my plan for dinner is a stew that's going to be somewhere in the vicinity of chili. We've got beef, we've got beans. I still haven't used my spice allowance, so we potentially got chili. We've got some of this tomato sauce, although to be honest, I'm hoping the tomato sauce on these beans is going to be better than that. But along with chili, I would like something to go with it. I'd like some bread or some crackers or a flatbread or something. So we're going to get experimental now and see if we can make this cook into some sort of pancake. So back again with the handheld blender, and all of that lot of spaghetti is going to go in there. I need to try to blend this down so that it's completely homogenized. And I'm going to use the yogurt to do that because why not? You know, some flatbreads have yogurt as part of their hydration. So let us see if we can blend this down to a completely smooth paste. Yeah, I think a little bit more liquid is required. So So I'll add that just in the form of a little splash of water. Well, that does appear to be something approaching a batter. Let's see what happens when we try and cook it. Now, fortunately, the thing we have in great abundance is this rendered fat from the cooking of the beef mince and the meatballs, which will also have some kind of flavouring in it as well, because the flavours of the herbs will have cooked out into that. Okay, now this batter is reminiscent of drop scones, so my kind of sincere hope is that we'll end up with something along those lines. I think I'll just turn that down for a little bit, just to give that a chance to cook all the way through. I'm not actually sure that this is going to hang together. I've got a feeling this is just going to come apart and be a mass of fried crumbs. But we'll see. Let's see if there's any kind of... not really any kind of sign of cohesion happening. Yeah, by now, a flour-based pancake, I'd be able to get under there and flip it. I'm interested to know, because I know some other people, including some folks at Discord, have experimented with trying to make pasta back out into something else wheat-based. Let me know if you've had any success with anything like this. Yeah, that's not... it's not really working. It's a bit like frying very, very moist mashed potato. But we'll see. Maybe I should be just frying tiny little nuggets of it like that. But you know, we have to try these things because you miss 100% of the shots you never take. That's so weird. I wonder if it just didn't actually need as much moisture as that. Maybe it needed some way of grinding it without adding this much moisture. It is gradually setting. Okay, well it is forming something. Well, I'm not sure that this is ever going to actually set in the middle, but we'll take it out and let it cool and see what happens then. It has somewhat stayed together. Slightly more hopeful for these little things here, which have gone not exactly crispy, but something like crispy. Okay, well my last one seems to be possibly the best of all. I just gave this a long time to set on the first side, and then I flipped it and pressed it down, which has extended it out a bit further. I'm now going to give it a long cook on that side as well, before I try to do anything. Anyway, I think probably that's enough waffle. We'll now cut to the other bit of cooking. So just put some water on the boil, and I've diced up some green beans. About half of what's left. So I've got about a third of my green beans left. Now we're going to check out these beans. There sounds like quite a lot of sauce in there. Right, and I can hear the water boiling, so these are going to go in the pan. Let's just have a little dig down in there and see. Yes, there's a lot of sauce on top. Just going to give this sauce a little taste. Not bad, not tremendously rich. That's kind of what I would expect for beans that are really cheap. Now, oddly enough, some of the other supermarkets have really upped their game with the low-end baked beans. The cheapest baked beans from Lidl are really, really quite good. They've got a very rich tomato sauce. The beans are all the way up to the lid. This is still doing what cheap beans used to do. My green beans are now cooked. I'm just going to drain those. Very lightly cooked. They've had about 2 or 3 minutes. And my chilli, such as it is going to be, we'll go for about half this tin of beans. We'll have all of my minced beef that I cooked earlier and reserved. For my sauce allowance, I'm going to have Worcestershire sauce. So we'll just have a few dashes of that in there. And my spice allowance, also still not used. Extra hot chili flakes. So we'll have about a teaspoonful of those in there. Maybe a little bit more. Let's just see how that's looking. It's probably not got enough liquid at the moment. Okay, well we will have some of this tomato pasta sauce. Right, I'm going to put that back on the stove now and get it heated up. I think these radishes will go in as well. These are the griddle fried ones. We might as well have those in there as well. Because why not? I mean, am I tempted to say, hey, let's put a banana in there? Of course. Of course I'm tempted, but I think I'll resist. It's time for plating up. So everything's warmed through thoroughly here. So, is that chili? There is a bit more in the pan. And then alongside this, we can have what I'm going to call resurrected flatbreads. A little bit of plain yogurt on the side there, just in case the chili heat gets too hot. And there we go. That's dinner. Well, okay, so this bit looks kind of okay. These look okay, but I really don't think they're going to be. But let's not rely on guesswork. Okay, well, let's taste this bit first, because this is the bit I've got the most kind of hope for. Yeah, it's okay. I mean, there's a lot of things that would be nicer with if it had some cumin in it, if it had some peppers in there, maybe more than one different type of bean. It is recognisably chilly. And actually, do you know what? I've been sprinkling these on my food, and I didn't realise how hot they are when you cook them into something. Pleasantly hot. Okay, I can't put this off any longer. Well, I'll try it with a bit of chilli, and then I'll give you my verdict. Right, in terms of eating these as a side, you know, taking a bite of that and having a spoonful of chilli, the best thing about that is if you just don't. However, as little crouton type things, that's much more forgivable. Yeah, that almost works. But on their own, they're like wet pancakes. I've got one here that I cooked a bit longer, and it's a bit more crisp. Better, but it's like a weird wet pancake inside a crispy shell. Oh well, if we hadn't tried, we wouldn't know. This chili, for all it lacks, is quite satisfying. Well, okay, that was dinner. I think now back to Studio Shrimp for the wrap-up. We'll score those meals. We'll have a look at what was left over, and what have we learned.
All right, Studio Shrimp here. Analysis time. First, let's just take a look at the amount of ingredients I had left at the end. I had half that tin of beans and half that jar of pasta sauce, only a tiny bit of yogurt, 200 grams of spaghetti, 3 bananas, 50 grams of radishes, 70 grams of green beans and 200 grams of beef mince. In terms of price, I used £3.24 worth of food out of the £5.43 spent, or about 60%. With a little bit more care and less messing around, this shopping could have stretched to 2, perhaps 3 days. I also had some beef fat left over, and I didn't use the additional oil allowance. I didn't use any pepper either. Now, let's score the meals. Breakfast, which I'm calling spaghetti alla carbonara. This was just very weird. It wasn't nasty, but it was just too strange to really enjoy. Only 3 out of 10. Second breakfast, banana pasta porridge. This was much better and almost worked. It could have just used one additional thing, maybe a drizzle of honey or some raisins or just one extra thing to round it out. So this one can have 6 out of 10. Lunch, spaghetti and meatballs. This was pretty nice. I'll give it 7 out of 10. It would have just been nicer if the sauce had been something else. Even a can of ordinary tomatoes instead of that jar of sauce would have been better, I think. The addition of yogurt saved the sauce. The meatballs were really tasty, and the radishes fried in beef dripping were really good. Dinner, chili with resurrected flatbreads, was a bit of a curate's egg. The chili itself, even though it was very simple, was tasty and satisfying. There are a lot of things that could have been done to make it better, but outside of these limitations. The resurrected flatbreads, well, I'm happy that I tried, but they were not great. They were kind of acceptable when they were mixed together with the chili, but unpleasant on their own. The chili would get 6 out of 10, I think, but the bread things only get 1 out of 10. So I suppose that's a combined score of 3.5 out of 10, or maybe it should be 4 or something, since the bread was a side and the chili was the main. So now, what have I learned? Positives first. Well, I do think that breakfast pasta might be a thing worth developing, so I might explore that without the limitations sometime. Radishes quickly fried in beef dripping are delicious. Will eat again. Lessons learned that were not so positive. It seems you just can't make flatbread or pancakes out of pasta, or at least I can't. I'm happy that I know that now. And also, I think I really don't like Aldi's cheap pasta sauce or beans. Even when I set my expectations according to price, that sauce just seemed a bit nasty to me, and the baked beans are well below the standard that other supermarkets have managed to offer for that exact price point. A sort of neutral or mixed lesson from this one is also the observation that the most successful dish today was one of the most obvious ones, given the available ingredients. But I think it would be wrong to conclude from that we shouldn't try weird ideas. In other episodes in this series, some really good things have come out of experimentation that goes a little way off the map. I hope this has been interesting. I'll do another one of these soon at a different supermarket, and again with the shopping items from today's video on the prohibited list, so we get to mix it all up again. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.